Finished up some reloading again today. Got this thing working good now. Okay, civil disobedience. Everybody knows what civil disobedience is. And looks like in Connecticut we're seeing lots of civil disobedience. Basically, after the Sandy Hook shooting, gun laws went completely senseless. They already had a lot of gun laws that were broken and stuff like that. And of course, there's people out there that think more gun laws is the answer. The problem is with all laws, laws are reactionary. They're something that you could seek after an event. Somebody steals something from you. You can seek. There's repercussions for your actions. So that's what laws are. They're reactionary. You cannot enact a law until somebody breaks it, right? So, from a prevention point of view, it's kind of a dull argument. It won't work because it's like, well, it's only reactionary. So again, and they done this here in Canada and everything, is they take the actions of somebody, okay, and when that person does wrong or harm to others, what they do is they punish the collective for the actions of an individual, which is completely ass backwards, you know what I'm saying? You punish the person that did it. Now the person offs themselves, you can't punish themselves now, can you? Yeah. So at the end of the day, what are you left with? Well, you're left with a whole bunch of people who are getting punished for something they didn't do. They did the same thing here in Canada. They brought in a long gun registry, which is arguably still around. Now, the thing is that registration leads to confiscation. It's that simple. Most people figure that out. Now, Connecticut, from my understanding, is a very left-wing, pro-union, pro-democrat, kind of place. It's not like Texas, which is really right-wing. From my understanding, maybe I'm wrong. If you're from there, you'll let me know. Bottom line, pretty simple, I guess, is people said no, we're not going to go for all this ridiculous gun control because they've already had gun control that didn't work, and this horrible incident happened. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, okay, well, even if you ban these other items, okay, it won't matter because bad guys are still going to do what they're going to do. You can't legislate crazy and criminal is an occupation. And, I've stated that so many other times in so many other videos. And there's also, too, you will be the first responder to your attacker. And, that looks good. And the reason why I say that, well, not only is it truth, but that's the frame of mind you got to really take this from, is that if there's nobody there to defend you, or if you can't defend you, those are the laws that need to change. Those are the, gun-free zones really do need to be put into question here. The media still barely touches the gun-free zone. The so-called right-wing media, which is not really that right-wing when we're talking mainstream, they're controlled opposition. So they don't really push the issue the way it should be pushed. Nothing changes, nothing changes, right? So they come up with the registration idea in Connecticut, and people are just not taking to it. I don't know when they came up with this. I guess they must have done it last year, whatever. And at the end of the day, people didn't. Huge non-compliance rate. Well, here in Canada, it's the same thing. There was probably estimated about an 85% non-compliance rate. So, they'll have you believe there's like 1.4 to 2 million legal gun owners on the books. That's the only gun owners that are in the country. Out of 33.5 million people this country's a frontier country, just like the United States. To try to convince me, okay, the Cooey-22, okay, I love using this as an example. The Cooey-22, something that the RCMP and the Crown never calculated as a firearm for the registry. There was 12 million of those made in this country at a time when there was probably only about 20 million people in the country. And that's way before globalism and export, mass exporting of all our stuff, I don't know. Oops. That's still good. That's still good. And the whole point is this: is that at the end of the day, the long gun we've had a handgun registry since 1934. It's yet to produce a single name of a person that's actually saved. When we first got a long gun registry, and this is something for you people in Connecticut, the police come out and say, well, we use it 700 times a day. So people go, oh wow, if they use it 700 times a day, well then maybe it's a good thing. Then people weren't buying it. They're like, nah, we don't care if you use it 700 times a day. Oh, we use it 1,200 times a day. And then it went up to 5,000 times, 2,000 times a day, then 5,000 times a day, then 17,000 times a day. I think it was like 22,000 times a day at the end of it, which is a total BS argument. And here's why: because the crime rate does not reflect. If they were using it that much, you would see, everybody would be in freaking jail. You know what I'm saying? So they will lie. The anti-gun left lies. Now, I do get it's not really a left-right issue in a lot of ways. But in a lot of ways, the arguments that are typical from the left are typical from the right. The anti-gun stuff typically comes from the left. So, which is kind of really interesting and scary at the same time, because it just kind of reinforces some things I've been saying about people revolting against government in late 2013, early 2014. This is it's a nice peaceful revolt, but it's going to get violent because the government, basically gave people a certain amount of time to register their rifles, and they did it here in Canada, and people weren't complying. So what they kept doing is giving an amnesty, basically pushing the date back, and then finally, arguably, we sort of got rid of it, but we have in my province here in Quebec, they're trying to keep it, so they have it tied up in the courts. So basically, if the Conservatives lose the next election, we're going to be losing an awful lot of guns, especially if they lose to the NDP, who can't wait to ban just about. Well, their goal in the long run is to ban every gun, and that's the whole point of a registry. As a Canadian, I am telling you, there's a list of rifles that's pretty big. You can go on the RCMP website. Even if you're an American watching this, just so you could see how it has worked, go on the RCMP website, type in long gun registry, and then you can see our firearms law list of prohibited, and the list is just monsters. There's a lot more firearms we can. There's a lot of good firearms we can have, but and you're going to say, well, why is this rifle banned? But yet you can legally buy this other rifle, which is internally identical, and they're functionally the same. And this is the great question: why is that? Liberal logic dictates there is no logic. How can you be logical when you're ruled by emotions? Jeez. So anyway, bottom line is what we're looking at is a very scary situation for these people, because unlike Canada, we got our amnesty that said, okay, well, if you don't, people are not registering it. Okay, well, here's what we'll do. We'll, get 2 years to register. 2 years comes by. The police, the RCMP, the government, they know there was a huge, big non-compliance, and they said, okay, well, we'll give you another 2 years. We'll give you the, okay, by this date you have to do it. That date came and gone. They moved the amnesty back, but you got to demand the amnesty. You know what I mean? Because people were ticked off about it. It's not about gun safety. Unfortunately, some people are brainwashed into thinking it's about gun safety. No, it's about a gun ban. Maybe you support a gun ban. That's fine, but you have to understand. And I think Adam Kolkesh said this really well. He goes to the Million Mom, which I think was only like 1,000 women, Million Mom anti-gun march thing, for banning guns and stuff like that. And he goes there, and he's talking to one lady. He says, okay, well, if they decide to ban guns and do gun confiscation, and we say no, how are they going to get the guns? And the lady's kind of like, well, the police will go get them. So you mean you're going to need violence to get the guns? Well, no, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. Here's the thing: if you're in Connecticut and you're a gun owner, a lot of people now, because they've passed the amnesty date, will not go forward and go and register the guns, because if they do show up, say, hey, look, we missed the date, I'm sorry, you're going to have somebody working for the system, police or whatever, saying, well, that's, thank you for bringing in the gun, you're doing your civic duty, way to go. However, because I'm a public employee, this is the list of things I have to do. I have to arrest you or fine you or whatever, make you a criminal, because apparently this is a felon, like most gun laws here in Canada. Anything in Canada is a felon, which manufactures a hell of a lot of criminals. Okay? Now, the rub in all this is that, here's these people, like, there's going to be no rational thought, like, okay, well, you put up, the mass non-compliance, now people want to comply, they can't comply because, you've manufactured criminals. There's no way they're going to, they're not going to be able to do it, without repercussions. So, of course, you've just bred a whole bunch of criminals because these people, it's not that they can't comply with, or don't want to comply with the law now, it's they can't comply with the law because it's simply impossible to, they're criminals. They woke up criminals, and that means they're not going to have the benefit of the law on their side. Meaning they're going to get fined, they're going to get this, they're going to get that. So they have to stay criminals. That's got to be stressing for people. Now some are probably just doing outright defiance, which is good. If a law is unjust, and this is the thing the bureaucrats don't understand. If a law, this is why I like Sweden or Switzerland. They get a law. They don't like the law. They have direct democracy, and they can referendum the law away, which they've just done with they've done it quite a few times, and they've just done recently on another issue. And I think that's the way to go. So, here in Canada, and this is why government can make it impossible for peaceful civil disobedience, is British Columbia, they brought in what's known as the HST. It's a tax. The province did not want this tax. People didn't want it. They brought it in anyway. So people got a little bit ticked off, and they said, okay, you know what? We're going to have a referendum. They had the referendum, and the tax is still there. Oh, well, we borrowed the money already, and we got to pay it back. So in other words, the government just doesn't listen to its people, which is dangerous because obvious reasons. People will revolt. Now, right now, it's peaceful. But once you start seeing people rounded up and people's lives destroyed because of a gun law that manufactured a bunch of criminals, that's when you're going to start seeing real revolts. And might not be this year, but it's just going to get bad. And considering where it's starting, and again, I've always said communism always fails. And gun laws that are now on the books are pretty much more due to communism. Leftist thinking. People who refer themselves to as progressives really don't realize that they're actually communist. They have to control everything, right, for the greater good. And that progressive is the new communist. It's just they reword it so people, because if the communists actually told you what they were, nobody would go for it, right? Because but some people are very gullible at first, and once they kind of catch on to what's going on, then you get things like this where, hey, you know what? There's no justification for my privacy being violated by a gun registry, even in the name of the greater good. And again, I'm going to have what the arguments are for it, but people are catching on that. Like, there's absolutely nothing that this accomplishes except for, gun confiscation. Again, I'm a Canadian. I'm telling you from experience, we've lost a lot of rifles here in Canada just because of a gun registry. It leads to confiscation. If you just look at what happened in Australia, that's what gun confiscation. Here in Canada, they don't even really do, well, they do some buyback programs, but let's say you went and bought a $3,000 rifle. I don't care what the rifle is. And you buy this $3,000 rifle, then the next day some bureaucrat somewhere says, that's a little too scary looking, we're going to ban that. And they come knocking on your door and say, you got to hand over your rifle, so to speak, or they even go the other way to say, well, you got to come to us, and you got to pay for the disposal because people don't work for free. We got to cut this rifle up. Okay, so what you're saying is I have to pay you to take my gun away from me. You probably say that is ridiculous. Go bleep yourself. But then if you don't, they do show up at your door. You get cuffs put on you. You get either a big fine. You probably might not do jail time, but you probably do community service. You'll have something on your record. You probably say that sounds far-fetched. They're not going to do that. That's what they do here. Yeah. Again, registration leads to confiscation and it manufactures criminals. 1 year after we passed our Bill C-19, for example, which was to end the long-run registry, but the data is still there. And in the High River gun grab in Alberta during the flooding, which is kind of like they did the same in Hurricane Katrina, I'm sure they used that same data. I mean, we can't trust the RCMP anymore. Like, if they have the information on hand, they're going to use it. And they found all the people that they broke into. We're talking thousands of homes, and they seized over 500 firearms. Okay, and they knew where they were going. So how did they know where they were going when they weren't supposed to be using that data? Well, they used that data. Is that simple? So who gave the order? That's still debatable. There's a couple of people, but like all bureaucrats, nobody's ever accountable for anything. So of course you're going to get revolted if that happens. So in the end, okay, the arguments for it are it's to make people safer. But how does it make people safer? Well, we know where the guns are, but it doesn't tell you if somebody's going to do good with them or do bad with them. And statistically speaking, gun owners are the most legal gun owners are the most unlikely people to ever commit crimes. They're like 1/3 less than any other civilian. Like we're talking 0.6 per 100,000 people versus 1.8 per 100,000 people. We're even more law-abiding than most police officers. We're the most law-abiding in the country, and that works both in Canada and in the United States. So so this is just something that it is completely uncalled for on an incident that had nothing to do with the gun owners. It was a individual that did something bad. Yeah, but we don't want it to happen again. Well, it's going to happen again no matter what gun laws if you don't obey the law, that says not to murder anybody. Every law underneath that. I mean, Adam Lanza went through a lot of attempts to get his guns before he stole them. You know what I mean? So it just goes on. There's just anybody that's out there that has a little bit of logic understands that this is about a gun grab. So with that said, they've manufactured a whole bunch of criminals who can't comply with the law without being dinged. So there's no amnesty. So you can't do it, which is good because now at this point, this is where people have to stand together because they will try to pick you off one at a time, but you need to actually rally up. People need to be fired for that kind of. You need to have a referendum first. Keep it peaceful, but you need to demand the jobs of some of these bureaucrats that are just, and then the next election, don't vote them in, so it's kind of like that. So take it from me as a Canadian, we're still dealing. I mean, we're slowly on the right step, but our gun laws. I mean, we don't have a single politician that's really on our side. Just they're pandering to votes, right? In fact, the last election, the reason why the Conservative government has got a majority government was because of the gun owners. Although they say there's only like 2 million of us legally in the country, most of the people like myself who have registered just because I'm on YouTube and stuff like that all the time. So of course I got to keep it legal. But there's probably about 6 to 10 million of us, on a population of 33.5. There's a lot of gun owners here. There's more guns than people here. I would probably say Canada probably has more guns in it per capita than any other country in the world. It's just most of them are considered illegal. We'll never know for sure, but there's probably like 150 million, 200 million guns here. That's probably not an exaggeration. Some say, oh no, well they estimate 7 to 21 million, but if you just go back from World War I, World War II, the numbers, I mean, there was 19 million guns after World War II that they estimated 11 to 19 million, and then plus 12 million Cooey 22s. Plus there's the stuff Jacques Cartier, the first guy to land here, brought. There's muskets. I mean, these things don't leave the country. They got to be somewhere, right? So there's lots and lots and lots of guns here. Is the point I'm trying to make. And no, these. And if you're one of those people that think a gun registry is a good idea, what you need to think of logically is how is this actually going to save anybody? It will not prevent a single crime. We brought in all the gun control that they're demanding in the States. We already do here. I mean, Canada still, firearms-wise, is a lot better off than a lot of other countries, but we're slowly, it's all incremental. They ban incrementally, because if they did it overnight, people would revolt. They would lose all their ground, and that's why people do need to revolt now. Is because now's the time to reverse the tide. What should they do for gun laws? Well, safe, training. I believe that you should be trained. Because it is takes a responsibility to use those things, and I also believe that you should be allowed to carry them for self-defense, with it, but you need training to be able to do that, and that's about my only, and then where you can safely discharge a firearm and where you can't, for hunting and target shooting and stuff like that. That's about the only things that are really, common sense stuff. If it doesn't pertain to safety or common sense, there's no point in doing it. But yeah, so anyway, I guess I'll leave it at that. I guess I'm going on a bit long. Rate, subscribe, share, comment, like, and there you go. And for you people in Connecticut, fight the good fight. Don't give them an inch. Okay, hi and welcome. Finished up some reloading again today. Got this thing working good now. Okay, civil disobedience. Everybody knows what civil disobedience is. And looks like in Connecticut we're seeing lots of civil disobedience. Basically, after the Sandy Hook shooting, gun laws went completely senseless. They already had a lot of gun laws that were broken and stuff like that. And of course, there's people out there that think more gun laws is the answer. The problem is with all laws are reactionary. They're something that you could seek after an event. Somebody steals something from you. You can seek. There's repercussions for your actions. So that's what laws are. They're reactionary. You cannot enact a law until somebody breaks it, right? So, from a prevention point of view, it's kind of a dull argument. It won't work because it's like, well, it's only reactionary. So again, and they done this here in Canada and everything, is they take the actions of somebody, okay, and when that person does wrong or harm to others, what they do is they punish the collective for the actions of an individual, which is completely ass backwards. You know what I'm saying? You punish the person that did it. Now the person offs themselves. You can't punish themselves now, can you? Yeah. So at the end of the day, what are you left with? Well, you're left with a whole bunch of people who are getting punished for something they didn't do. They did the same thing here in Canada. They brought in a long gun registry, which is arguably still around. Now, the thing is that registration leads to confiscation. It's that simple. Most people figure that out. Now, Connecticut, from my understanding, is a very left-wing, pro-union, pro-democrat, kind of place. It's not like Texas, which is really right-wing, from my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong. If you're from there, you'll let me know. Bottom line, pretty simple, I guess, is people said, no, we're not going to go for all this ridiculous gun control because they've already had gun control that didn't work, and this horrible incident happened. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, okay, well, even if you ban these other items, okay,